An Iranian-American filmmaker named Cyrus may have a great plot for his next movie, inspired by his own life. He's just returned home to Los Angeles after being held in a U.S. military camp for nearly 2 months, suspected of being a possible terrorist, one of only a handful of Americans to experience prison life in Iraq.
Cyrus was born in Iran, but grew up on the West Coast, went to college in California, served in the Navy. For the past few years, he's been pursuing a dream, filming a historical documentary in several countries. The ancient city of Babylon in Iraq was supposed to be his last stop, but on May 17th, the taxi that Carr was riding in was pulled over at an Iraqi checkpoint. Authorities found 36 washing machine timers in the trunk, devices that could be used to make roadside bombs. Carr was taken into custody. He ended up at Camp Cropper in solitary confinement. Carr says he never had access to a lawyer in Iraq. His family sought help from the American Civil Liberties Union.
It's so unfair. It's so unfair to have someone, innocent person in this country. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
His story made front-page news in the New York and L.A. Times. The ACLU filed a lawsuit seeking his release. Then, on a Sunday morning, after 55 days in confinement, the U.S. military finally let him go.
And joining us now from Los Angeles for his first television interview is Cyrus Carr, along with his attorney, Mark Rosenbaum. Good morning to both of you, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Cyrus, this is such an incredible story. I've been following it for the last couple of weeks from here. You were in 4 prisons, including the notorious Abu Ghraib for a little bit, and you ended up in solitary confinement, 55 days. What was that like?
It was pretty uneventful, but just I was pretty much just felt betrayed. That's about it. The hardest part of, yeah.
Were you lost in the system? Is that what you think happened? I mean, you claim you were innocent the whole time.
Yeah, I was. It was pretty much, I was relegated to the abyss, and no one would have known about me had it not been for the ICRC, and they were the first to notify my family.
International Committee for the Red Cross, which your sister just happens to work for, so she got word that you were all right. Did they treat you well?
Well, it depends on which camp you're talking about. Like you said, I was in 4 different camps, and each had a very, very different culture. The one I was in, luckily, was run quite professionally, despite the fact that I shouldn't have been there in the first place. Yeah.
But at one point, one of the first soldiers you encountered, I read, was calling you an American terrorist and saying you were no better than John Walker Lynn.
Yeah, well, he said, you're an enemy combatant, you're the next John Walker Lynn, your case is going to, the highest levels of government are going to know about you. Don Rumsfeld and President Bush, they're all going to know about you. You're going to be famous in the government. So,
let me ask you about what the Defense Department has said, Cyrus. They said in a press release, "We understand this has been difficult for Mr. Carr and his family. However, we owe the coalition forces, Iraqi security forces, and Iraqi civilians a thorough investigation, especially when the circumstances relate to serious and potentially dangerous activity." They did find 36 timers in the trunk of that cab. So can you blame the Defense Department for going to great lengths to make sure you weren't a terrorist?
You know, Kate, I can. The thing is the driver within in the very, very first interrogation admitted that those devices belonged to him. That we were just passengers in the cab, and my cameraman and I had nothing to do with it. Actually, the way I see it is that this kind of willy-nilly policy of arresting people and then the wanton violence that is subsequent to that arrest only creates, and the most egregious of all is to hold people once intelligence, whether it be the FBI or military intelligence, knows that they're actually innocent, they hold them anyways. That is what's causing a lot of Americans to lose their lives, because when innocent people, whether they're neutral or even perhaps are on the side of Americans, once they get out of incarceration, they're looking for payback. They're not going to be on the side of Americans anymore. They're not going to be neutral anymore. They're going to look for the first insurgency group they can join.
Cyrus Carr, Mark Rosenbaum, attorney, thank you so much. I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your story. And we'll be right back.